Oh, thank you. Hi. Thank you so much. Good morning. Welcome to the Wednesday warm-up. I'm your host, Lee. The Wednesday warm-up is powered by the Insights Show. And if you haven't done so already, may I please kindly ask you to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It will help a lot to get the algorithm to notice us. Okay, that is the purpose actually for doing that. And also, because we don't want to force anybody into liking it. I mean, maybe you can wait a while, before you like. But before you go out, at least like or
dislike. You don't have to like it immediately, but at least just like.
Exactly. And I am joined by the lovely Anka Hendricks. How's it, girl? How you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing? I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. What is the temperature out there? Because this morning was cold, bro.
I don't know what the temperature is, but it is just very cold. This is the temperature. And remember, I come from a place where it's just sunshine every day, whole day, all day, right? It's just heat temperature, sizzling hot.
Yeah.
So this for me is Siberian winter.
Yo, bro. That meme, no one, Coloureds. Die winter gaan koud as well.
Yeah, no, but I think that is a truth. I can say that because our winters where we come from wasn't cold.
Yeah.
Now we understand that winters can be cold.
Oh, so this thing called winter, it's actually supposed to be cold.
It's actually supposed to be cold.
Okay, and then we've got somebody there in the paddock. No stranger to the Insights Show. Also to the Wednesday warm up. He jumps on you now and then. It's your boy Oom Zykes. How's it, bro?
Oom Zykes.
Why must I always be Oom Zykes?
That is the name that we gave you, bro. That is the name that's sticking. I'm sorry. You know how it goes in the colored communities. Once we give you a name, it sticks.
Sticks. Wait, man. Can I tell you all this? You were saying now about colours and making jokes. I was. In fact, I played this joke for you. It was funny. When this guy that I know, he said he's gonna do a poem, and he said, "Ag je versage, winter, damn it, that is good."
Wow.
Thank you.
Shoo,
Hilarious.
I cracked myself up.
That was a dope joke.
I guess context is important. Like it was a joke that you guys said in your remnant group, which is your biker group. It's an inside joke, and because you know the people, it's funnier. But for me, I was just like,
well, now it's funny. In that context, it's funny.
Do you know the person that said it?
No, I'm saying in the context of you trying to explain it, and it's not ringing true to us.
So that is the reason why, unfortunately, Zykes, sorry.
Well, I just hate us. You don't want to laugh at my joke.
It's not that. In your fields. But listen, there's major things happening in our country, in case you haven't noticed.
Besides that it's cold.
Slow fuse. Now you're laughing now.
No, Zykes. Anka and I have a different humor streak.
I really try to tell Xavier all the time. Like, I'll send him something and be like, but that's not bad. I'm like, you know what? Andrew would appreciate this. And then, there's times where I delay it, but I send it because I just need it to be appreciated. And he doesn't understand it. He doesn't understand our humor or the connection we share.
But even that
humor.
one time when we were on his show and he had that try not to laugh challenge and the things that he thought were funny, I was like,
well, I'm just hating on my.
Okay.
I think humor is different. Like,
no, it is.
For everybody.
It is. I
Well,
mean,
I
that poem.
Winter, damn it. That is good.
Okay, but anyway, other major things are happening in our country. Oh, wow.
Welcome, Sunny. Welcome.
One of the major things that's happening is Jessie just walked into studio. Hi, Jess.
Let us just have a moment. Woo! Men's made it. Men's remembered.
Yo, bro. It's cold. We've got a poem for you.
A warm-up poem. It's a warm-up
poem. My poem.
Did Jessie tell you his poem?
But he doesn't have earphones now. The poem goes like
I
this.
can't hear Zakes.
Give me
Yeah.
my earphone so you can hear me. How you gonna now hear me? You'll see now. That's
She's
story of
heard it.
having
She's
little
heard it a couple
earphones.
of times.
Through the
Bruh.
grace of God.
This is how the poem goes. Van Agie Versagie. Winter. Damn it. Dit is koud. Dankie.
Sure.
That's the poem.
Did you make it up or is it something you read?
Yo, voilà, hier is
Leave
wat.
these earphones like us.
Look, we're just trying to explain to you. Yes, it is funny to you.
yeah.
We
Yes.
understand.
No, we get it. We get it.
We get it. But it might not be funny to the larger.
Broader public.
Yes.
Yeah.
That which is
So we've got people in the comment section. I just want to say hi to Shanae. Shanae was one of our guests last year. Jess, Shanae is back on YouTube on the live. We just want to say hi to you. But listen, we started off. We didn't really get into the conversation yet. I started off with the statement. There's some major things happening in our country, in case you haven't noticed.
Yeah.
One of the major things is the whole load shedding and the possibility of the grid collapsing completely. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? There's some videos going around. There was one of the EFF, Julius Malema, was saying that in 2 weeks, the grid is there's going to be a complete blackout because there is talks that there is going to be a complete national grid collapse. And they say, experts are saying that if that happens, you could be without electricity for a week, up to 6 months. Because what happens, we know how cable theft operates here in our country. So if there's no electricity and the lights do say niks van dirt, then cable theft happens, then you must now repair those cables.
But why are we
then-
stealing cables if there's no use for these cables? I'm just asking for a friend. Because these cables are to supply electricity, which is not
There's no
non-existent.
electricity.
So where are we stealing them?
Yeah.
For who are we stealing? I'm just asking for a friend.
But remember, it's all part of a syndicate.
It is. It is all part of a syndicate. But I'm saying that you can only get paid, right, to relay those cables so that the electricity can be supplied. But those cables are no longer needed because there's no electricity to supply.
It's true. Jess, what do you think?
I'm not surprised. Nothing surprises you anymore in South Africa. It's normal. It's a normal thing. Life goes on. Hey, I don't know, girl. Ek is moeg nou.
Yo.
You need electricity, ain't load shedding over here.
electricity.
Sykes, what do you think?
Hey, bruh, for me, I agree with Jess. You getting to this place now, it's like, you just like, I don't know
is
what
what
to
it
say
is.
anymore. It's just, it is what it is. And I said it on, I don't know whose show we were on when, and I was speaking about being institutionalized and how your mind how they begin to program your mind to reason in a certain way. They did
condition
with
it, yeah.
COVID. Yeah, they condition you over a period of time. And I said even it's so bad that we've been conditioned to the place where we stop at the robot when it's working because our minds already saying that this robot's not working because it's always off. And we're so used to it always being off that we just expect it to be off. And so that's the power of conditioning. So they condition you over time. They switch it off for an hour, switch it off for 2 hours. Now it's off for 12 hours. Then they switch it off for 13 hours. And eventually it will just be off altogether. And because in the beginning you complain, there's people, how can they do this, da, da, da. Later on you stop complaining. Later on you buy a generator.
Now
later
you
on
have
put
preferred
solar
times.
power. Then it's like, you know what's the point? And so we at the whole South Africa is at the place now of, hey, bro, I don't know even what to say anymore. What's the use of even complaining?
Yeah, because now we have preferred times. Like, I prefer
Yeah.
the 6 o'clock slot
Yeah.
over the 8 o'clock slot.
Yeah.
Like, we want to pick and choose what our slots is. And the other thing is, the other day, I almost got into a really bad accident because people are, the brains are rewired now that most of the robots are off, so it's a 4-way stop. Not realizing that the robot is actually on and it's for those people to drive. So I got to the stop, and for some reason I was like, no, this is a 4-way stop, and I waited for the one car and drove. Lucky the other person was cognizant enough to see. And it didn't just happen to me, it happened to me and Xavier. The other person almost drove into us because they felt like it was their turn. And you can't be upset because that's what's happening. The other day I was listening to this in the UK on BBC where they were discussing the load shedding and everything, and Rudy Clubby was on that segment where they were speaking about load shedding, and that guy said he likened it to lockdown because essentially it's a shutdown. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
So we're just being controlled in that aspect that you will work when we say you work. I'm ordering something from a company that needs to be done on Friday, right? They told me straight they can't send me the invoice needed to be paid yesterday afternoon at 4. They can't send me the invoice yesterday at 4 because they had load shedding. So they had to wait. Now I have to wait till after hours on Friday because they can't have it cut in time because of load shedding schedule. So, like, really, how are we supposed to keep the economy running? Ons moet nog taxes betaal. SARS still wants their money.
It's true.
So how are we balancing the equation here?
No, but it is. Businesses have really, like, we've changed our working hours. It's no longer 8 to 4. It's like 8 to 4 and any time when we can get back to you. That is throughout the day. That is how it's been. Because I was even speaking to one client as well. I sent this client a message, and the client was saying that I apologize. My work schedule really is now in the hands of ESCOM.
Yeah.
So I cannot reply on time or whatever the case may be. And that is, you guys, it's worse than what like we anticipated. You know, as South Africans, we the jokey nation. We turn everything into a joke, but I haven't seen a lot of jokes.
There's no more jokes around.
People are like really serious
We are
now.
joke
They're
shedding.
like, yeah, but nah. And Julius Malema actually said that in a press briefing that he had when he was talking about the possibility of, he said in 2 weeks there's going to be a complete blackout. And he said that, remember that time when there was a complete the EFF organized a national shutdown. Where they were going to go march and whatever the case may be. And then they were criticized for it, and they sent the army, and he says that they treated us like criminals. They said we were crazy. He says the reason why we did that is because we anticipated that this was going to happen. We foresaw that there's going to be a national grid collapse, and there's going to be a blackout nationally.
But they said us
And this
last
one
year
guy,
already.
there was, what were you saying?
I'm saying last year already they said at some point the whole thing's just gonna be off permanently.
Yeah. That's true.
But
And-
one I had this 2 weeks ago.
a grid collapse. So what was the outcome there?
Nah, this was only off for like a day or so. But South African analysts were saying that the reason why this was off for a day is because Botswana is much smaller than what South Africa is, and they don't have that many people. The infrastructure is not the same. They don't have the
it's
same
better.
problems. And
The
all that
infrastructure is
stuff.
better than ours.
So they were saying that if it had to happen in South Africa, we'd be off for much longer. Whereas Botswana was just off for a day.
When we say South Africa, I'm just asking for a friend. Is this pertaining to Joburg? Because I feel like we in Joburg are feeling the brunt a hell of a lot more than other cities are. I mean, even if we have to look, obviously there's different parties, that is obviously looking after whichever city. Like Cape Town, I mean, they have solar-powered robots. So why is that not? Joburg is the financial hub of South Africa. Why are we not working forward?
Because it's all about money.
Yeah.
If you now start putting solar power things in,
No
and
one
all
can
that,
steal. No one can eat.
You're crapping in someone's pot now, you see. So
But you see, this is what Andre de Ruyter said. They said, let the comrades eat. So they must eat so that everybody else can and everything's going up. Literally, like, when do we get a breather? I mean, if we're struggling to just eat, never mind drive,
Yo.
just eat. Like, where are we going to be? Are we going into famine now? Is this what modern day famine looks like? I'm just asking for a friend.
But I think when it comes to load shedding, the klein dorp is getting the worst.
Definitely.
Because you must know
Definitely.
the whole town goes out at once.
Yes.
So you can't find an ATM, you can't do this, you can't do that. Literally for that whole
Literally
4
shut down.
hours, you shut down. You can't do anything. I know because Kaylen's parents, they stay in George. The whole George goes off. You can't find, if you want money, you can't do anything. You have to just wait till the lights come on because all the ATMs are off.
So if you at that last minute, there's nothing at home, you want to just go buy bread.
You can't.
It's done.
If you don't have
you
money,
must just
you can't.
starve.
The thing is, you are right, Jess, about the klein dorpies, because I attended a family funeral 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it was in Mafikeng. And when we arrived the Saturday morning of the funeral, they said that they already 10 days without lights. 10 days. Well, I'm not talking about lights going. I'm not talking
Just
about
lights
load
off
shedding.
completely.
I'm talking about the grid collapse for 10 days. And then during the week when we came back, now we asked, like, my parents were inquiring, did the lights come back on? They're like, nope, Still nothing. So they can literally go 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month without any electricity. And you have to see the state of those streets. There's like literally no place to drive. There's such deep potholes. I was flabbergasted when I saw it. I was like, this is the actual reality of many South Africans. And I mean, if we're feeling the brunt with 4-hour intervals, let's say for instance 12 hours a day, if we feel the pressure and we feeling how the intensity of that, can you imagine a national shutdown where to the point where people are warning that crime is going to escalate?
I feel like you'll have the same that happened when the people
purge.
basically when people went wild, started going into Pick and Pay,
Yes.
the malls. I feel like you're gonna have the
Yes.
exact same
Most
thing.
definitely.
If that does happen.
The other day we were coming from your house. That one Sunday night we were coming from your house and we were stopped by a traffic officer, and we're thinking, what now? Because we don't really have much respect for our law enforcement out here, because you never know what's coming next. And that lady, she was a lady, and she was very nice. She asked for the license, and we were thinking, you're gonna give us stress now because of this. And Xavier gave his temporary license and whatnot. And she's like, you know what? I'm a police. I'm an officer. I'm a metro officer, but I struggled to get my license for 10 months. And I'm in the department, so I can't imagine how it is for you. Look at where we're standing now.
Just
Look at it's dark. There's no lights. It's load shedding. This is a black woman speaking to us, and she says, "I'm black." But in apartheid, at least things were working. Sure. I'm not saying, we must go back or whatever, but at least things were working. The hospitals were working. The lights were on. The streets were looked after. Everything was neat and clean. You could go to a government institution. This is coming from a black woman saying, she's like, no, my people is just messing up this place. So and I asked, what is it? Why is it that we can't get somewhere? But it's a matter of culture. So if you have to go look at how they lived back, like in villages and so, anything that isn't anybody who's in the chief position or in top, they can just take it's given to them because they are the chief.
Yeah.
And I think that mentality is still implemented. Only this is at a $1 billion scale, where so many people are impacted. People are literally dying. People are dying in hospitals because the stuff isn't working. Babies are dying in hospital because of load shedding. The stuff isn't working. How is this fair?
I mean, Baragwana's, which is one of it, I think it's the largest hospital in Africa. So the largest hospital on the continent. They didn't have food for a good couple of weeks. I don't know what's the situation now, but they didn't have food.
So at which point do we make the conclusion that ANC has no idea what they're doing? Like absolutely no idea.
20 how many years in?
Don't know what they're doing
Definitely you can reach
because
that
every
conclusion.
year that passes, the country
Or
deteriorates.
you saying they have no idea what they're doing. I think that they might. This is strategic.
It is strategic, but this is what Ridi was also referring to, that in terms of ESCOM, it is strategic. So I don't know if you guys saw the video where they were basically speaking about Patrice Motsepe and his company called, I don't know, something Sun, I don't know, whatever, and how they are crippling ESCOM to privatize. The only thing is that, are we not taking into account that the entire economy runs off of this?
Yes.
You get what I'm saying? When load shedding started, not started, but was at the crux of us going into 4 hours at a time. There was a company that called in that said they produce a milk company, supplied dairy products. They had to literally wash down the drain, I don't know, 130,000 liters of milk.
Yeah.
Because it was sour, it was off. That how much thousands of rands doesn't go, and you must still pay other things. Do you get what I'm saying? There's still taxes that need to be paid. There's a lot of other expenses that need to be paid. These people's workers need to be paid, and they must also pay tax on their salary.
So speaking about government and legislation and things, I don't know, did you guys see? I actually saw this last night, and that's the reason why I wanted to make the show about this, because we were going to speak about other things, Jess, but I think that it's a pressing issue. And it's the Employment Equity Amendment Bill, right, which is now classified as the Employment Equity Amendment Act of 2022. So this was proposed, it was brought forth in Parliament last year, and our dear President, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, he signed it not into effect, but he basically...
He didn't disapprove of it.
yeah, he assented to the bill basically last month, so in April. So last week Friday, it was open for public comment and opinion. So they made it. Obviously, there's many of us that don't know this. That there's public comment that we can comment on the bills that are being proposed before it is enacted or before it is enforced. So it's not yet in effect, but it will be in effect from the 1st of September 2023 this year. So in a couple of months, it will be in effect. And essentially, we all know that the Employment Equity Act of 1998, which is Act 55 of 1998, was basically to redress the past disadvantages for a specific disadvantaged group based on race, gender, and based on disability, right? It was actually more race and gender. There was obviously an emphasis put on disability, but it's been extended now, and that is what the amendment is about. So just in a nutshell, to give you guys an idea of what it says, I'm just going to read something that I found on, what is this? It's cliffdeckerhofmeyer.com. And it's a Q&A on the Employment Equity Amendment, but I'm just going to read what it is about, right? So it says here that the Employment Equity Act, which is the one of 1998, applies to all employees and employees who operate in South Africa, except the South African National Defence Force, National Intelligence Agency, and South African Secret Services. So while the EEA applies to all employers, excluding those that I just listed, certain sections of the EEA only apply to designated employers. So this is now the buzzword, it's the keyword, to designated employers in certain sectors of the economy, right? The employment equity, it says that the amendment to the EEA will bring about a change to the definition, like I said, of designated employer. Who is a designated employer? To restrict the application of these sections to a reduced group of employers and relieve some of the administrative burden on smaller employers. So one of the main objectives of the amendments introduced is to empower the Minister of Labour and Employment to, among other things, identify and set employment equity, keyword here, numerical targets for each national economic sector. So the purpose of the numerical targets is to ensure equitable representation of suitably qualified people from historically disadvantaged groups based on race, gender, and disability at all occupational levels in the workplace. So basically, right, it's to redress the ills of the past when it comes to discrimination and when it comes to disadvantaged groups. So we know that it's not a new concept, and hence we are familiar with certain affirmative action measures that have already been taken and that's already enacted, which is like triple BEE, for instance, the quota system, or how we interpret that Employment Equity Act of 1998, right?
Yeah.
Which we know that there should be provision in companies for a high percentage of Black African, or how they would describe it as Black African, and then colored, and then Indian, and then white. That is basically the structure of what we understand.
Okay, as per what you just said, now my question is, so where do we fit in?
Colored.
Yeah, but there's Black, we classified under Black.
Hence African.
So we're not
we must
African.
not consider it African
We
Black.
colored most. So
If we're not
under the
considered
Black
African,
umbrella,
where do we
right?
then come
there
from?
is
We fell out of the air.
No,
That's
wait,
where
where do
come
we come from? Wait, where do we come from then?
no, but obviously based on the definitions. I mean, we
grandparents
had this
were-
conversation
my
2
my
weeks ago
Yes.
grandparents were
about
born here.
who is considered African.
We understand
In fact,
that, but
my great-grandparents were born here, my grandparents were born here, my parents were born here, I was born here. Where do I then come from? Who am I? If I'm
you're not African, but you're Black.
You're not black.
But according to definition, you're black.
That's
According to the
the
South African definition, you are black, but you are not African. And according to Western culture, you are not African because you're not black. So what now? Where does that? I mean, I'm just asking. In our own society,
Are we just carrying on with apartheid now? We just
So
Well,
so
that's
that
the-
is some of the criticisms
that
on
is
this
the-
new
that is-
amendment.
that is
does
the
it just
Equities
apartheid,
Amendment Act.
Rearranged. Let's just change the colors around
Literally.
and then
But-
implement
but
a
is this not what I said to you?
Yeah.
Is this-
Mandela went to jail for.
I said this going up the stairs when we were discussing what this is, and I said this is just the Quotas Act with
Yeah.
nicer words. Like let's just candy
Well,
coat it, but that's
what's
what
the
it
difference
is.
between what the white
And-
people did in
and-
apartheid and what's happening now? Is it the same thing?
And
you
where-
are literally separating people based on the color of their skin. That is the literal definition of racism.
And so I'm just asking, so where does that put us? Because we're not black enough, but we ain't white enough. So where does that put us? It just never puts us anywhere.
Yeah. So some of the criticisms, right? I'm going to read some of them now, and I actually have an article there, which is written by, it's an opinion piece by a journalist called Ivo Vechter.
I like these surnames.
finding
There's
these things
deep.
from
Where are you finding these things?
So I'll tell you, the source is biznews.com, and it is in the description for you to go and read it in
its
full.
entirety.
Yo, English. So the title is SA's new employment equity bill is unconstitutional and counterproductive. And this is now by Ivo Vechter. This is what he says. And the blurb reads, President Cyril Ramaphosa has signed the Employment Equity Amendment Bill into law. Vechter posits that the legislation could be unconstitutional and is likely to cause more harm than good to the country, arguing that the Employment Equity Act of 1998, which prescribed affirmative action policies for companies with over 50 employees, had a reasonable use of using race as a proxy for disadvantage, but that the law has now outlived its usefulness. Attempts to implement Section 53 of the Act, which requires companies to comply with their employment equity plans, were struck down by both the Supreme Court of Appeals and the Constitutional Court. So there's obviously there's a lot of trade unions and political parties like the DA, which is now has made headlines, and I will read that article to you as well, that are saying, whoa, like we've read this bill and we have read what it proposes, and this is not sitting well with us, right? It is unconstitutional. So he goes on to say that the new employment equity law imposes quotas in all but name. So he's saying this is, like you said, this is just a quota system once again, without using the word quota. Now we are using terms like numerical target. So the one guy, there was an interview that I watched. I think his name
But
is
can I
Johnny
interject you
Goldberg.
there?
Yeah, go.
So if we're going numerical target, what is the target numerically?
Yeah, so I'm gonna give you that now. So stay tuned, right, guys? Stay tuned. It says that in the wake of the indefensible inequality created by apartheid segregation, which Xavier alluded to, the Employment Equity Act of 1998 prescribed affirmative action policies for companies with more than 50 employees or a turnover higher than a sector-dependent threshold. At the time, using race as a proxy for disadvantage seemed reasonable, but the proxy, like the act itself, has outlived its usefulness. The 1998 required these designated companies to prepare an employment equity plan, right? So that's important. Companies need to identify, and it's still part of this new amendment, where they need to, they are required to prepare an employment equity plan in consultation with employees to pursue demographic representativity targets at all levels of staff and management, and then report annually to the government on its progress towards achieving those self-imposed targets. Failure to adhere to the submitted plans could lead to substantial fines between 500,000 and 900,000, or somebody was saying somewhere equivalent to 10% of your total turnover. That is the fine. So attempts to implement Section 53 of the Act, which requires companies to comply with their employment equity plans if they want to bid for government contracts, have been struck down by both the Supreme Court of Appeals and the Constitutional Court as being inconsistent with the preferential procurement policy framework which takes precedence over the EEA. The EEA initially appeared to succeed in drawing previously disadvantaged people into predominantly white-owned and staff businesses, although it is arguable that some large companies were already grooming black people for career advancements long before apartheid finally fell and the EEA was promulgated. So also another argument in this is that all that these white-owned companies are doing is dangling black management in the faces of people without any real reparations. Because now there's a small group of elite black people that is climbing the ranks. And what do you even climbing the ranks? Where does it stop? Because there's obviously a threshold, right? No further than this. It's like, no, we'll give you the position of manager, but no further than this. And even, does the salary match up to a white manager's salary? No, but it's just because we've got a black face there in front.
Yeah, I mean, on
That's
paper
important,
it looks good. Yeah.
right? So now what difference is this amendment going to do? When we already see that a vast majority, I mean, if this, let's look at the amendment, the Employment Equity Act of 1998. If it was so effective by now, don't you think there would have been more black people, which includes, I'm using the term that they use, black, African, colored, and Indian. Don't you think there would be more of them now in top positions? I'm talking like CEO positions. I'm talking about managers of CEOs and directors and stuff like that. There's a small elite, but there's still a majority of white. So what has it actually been achieving?
And let's be honest. If we're going to say black, we really mean black. We don't mean the rest. We don't mean Indian. We don't mean colored. We just mean black, because you do see them. You do see them in F&B. You do see them in all those other some of those companies. But you see, it's like you said, a small group of elite. But it's really only, you don't see a colored there. You don't see an Indian there, because by definition, we're not really included there.
Yeah.
You know, we just not, let's face it, we're just not black enough to be included in those top elites. And yet again, for the purpose of this conversation, like, as much as we want to say black, we're really just speaking about Indian and colored here. Because the reality, we are just marginalized. We are just at the bottom of the food chain. I mean, we have riots every now and again. And where do we have riots? In colored communities.
But can I ask something, right? When it comes to this whole situation of what is this
EEA.
Employment
Equity Act.
Yeah, the whole BEE thing and all of this. I wanna echo what you were saying, because how long has this act been in place now? Since 1998. Yeah? How many years is that? And so now the question is, if after so many years, not much has changed. If something has changed, then we can come back and say, hey, look, since we've implemented this act, this has changed, that has changed, this has changed, and that has changed. Then we can say, okay, so this act is making sense. But if we are still saying the same thing we said in 1998 of, yeah, but there's only white people, I have a bunch of questions. Do you feel that you come in there working a day job, a 9 to 5, working yourself up to a manager's position, working yourself up to a CEO's position, do you feel that you have the right to take another person's company away from them that started the business or that has been running the business for X amount of years or whatever? So are you coming and saying, yeah, because of this act, I can come into your company, overthrow you as the CEO and take your business? In that case, I would say, then what stops you from starting your own business and working your way also through that? And then you are the CEO. And then if you are the CEO, would you then want some act that the government puts in place for someone that doesn't know what they're doing to come in and topple you and then take the business that you started, that you've grown over the years, that you have put your blood, sweat, and tears into to get to a certain place? Would you like that if the government just comes and says, okay, Sharp, this business of yours is too black, we need some white people in here, and someone overthrow you? You're going to must feel, oh, but this isn't my company. What do you mean you're just going to come and overthrow me like that? And then the other thing is, the question I want to ask is, what privileges in South Africa in 2023 does white people have that black people don't have? I'm talking about constitutionally or you're not allowed to go in here, you can't do this, you can't do that. What does white people have now constitutionally that says only white people are allowed to do 1, 2, and 3? No black people are allowed in this space, in this industry, in this, and that, and that. I know probably in the background you're gonna find that it's gonna be difficult to enter into different entities or into different institutions or different industries because it's white monopoly or manipulated. So it's hard now for you as a non-white to come and try and get in there. But there is no constitution that stops you from literally starting your own one across the road. There's literally nothing that stops you from doing that. And so again, I ask the question, why do we want what the white people have? And what stops us from just doing it ourselves on the side? And I know that opens a whole other can of worms because I've heard arguments like this and I've sat in debates like this. That opens just another can of worms. But constitutionally, there's nothing stopping anyone from going out and starting your own thing. If they said in the Constitution, if you want to start your own business, you can't, then that's another story. Or if they said, if I want to start something and I can't register it because I'm black or I'm colored, then that's a different story. But if I can register it and I'm allowed to grow it, then there's nothing stopping me from growing it. Do you understand my question?
So I do understand your question, and I hear what you are saying. And look, there's many ways to answer, to argue that, right, or to counter argue that. The one thing is that you cannot deny that transformation is necessary because of the years of apartheid and because of the years of exclusion, racial exclusion that was particularly enforced by law under the apartheid regime, and also before that when the colonizers came, right, and they took things from us. And now reparations is obviously something that you need to keep in mind. But like you were saying, I mean, if we look into almost 30 years after the disbandment of apartheid, it's almost 3 decades at this point in time. What have you achieved in this new act that can, how can I put it, that can encourage an amendment?
Show some sort of fruit to say that
yes,
this is what. In fact, I will go and argue that we have regressed. The roads are worse. There's no electricity in the country. The crime rate is higher. We've actually gone back as opposed to forward.
And here's another argument against this, another criticism of this, is that we've got such a poor education system. I mean, our pass rate is sitting at what now? 32% for high school. And then you get into university, and then you want to get into university with those poor marks. You force yourself into university. You get there, and you just cannot make it. You see what I'm saying? Now, in these sectors, right, they mentioned some. They said agriculture, forestry and fisheries, mining, construction, and they mentioned certain provinces, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, and they mentioned these places where this would now be in effect, which they've identified. And now you ask yourself the question, if you look at something like construction, where you need, for instance, engineers, civil engineers, right? And if you are not producing that on tertiary or educational level, how are you going to put those people, like I'm talking, when I say black, and I'm talking black, colored and Indian, right? Or the way they describe it as African, colored and Indian. What is the results? Because they give, so from when it's in effect 1st of September, they give 5 years for companies to start producing those numbers, those targets, those numerical targets. So if we are not producing, let's just use construction. If we are not producing enough engineers for those management positions, and we are just taking it based off of race and gender, what the heck is going to happen to our infrastructure, like Xavier mentioned, is already in shambles, because we know of syndicates within the government, ANC specifically, and also other parties, where they give contracts, the tenders are awarded to family members who do not know, who have no cooking clue of the industry, but they just get the tenders.
There's already a case study of what happens when you do this. And it's our South African national football team, right? It's a clear case study of what happens when you want to exclude everyone and make everything black, the whole thing just falls to crap. To the point where people are not even going to watch football games if Bafana plays anymore. Now, if you take the Bafana of Mark Fish and Benny McCarthy and Dr. Kumalo and those guys, where it was, and even Shus Mushweu and what was the goalkeeper's name, the tall white guy, and if you take
Booth.
Matthew Booth, and you take
No.
there was Matthew Booth was in the team
Wasn't
at
a
some
keeper.
point. If you take that Bafana,
He was there on
yeah,
streets.
if you take that Bafana, and you take the Bafana that we have now, that is a clear indication that shows you what happens when you involve government, when you involve politics, when you involve corrupt officials, when you involve people who are just there for the money, when you involve quota systems that we only want this thing black, no one else is allowed in here. Now, as a colored person, I'm seeing what other colored guys are doing. And I was listening to the interview on 947 the other night with Lyle Foster, and he came back and he's now playing in a Premier League team, right? And now, when he played his first game in the Premier League team, they said that South African Twitter went crazy. People were like commenting and they were excited and they're saying, hey, you're representing our country well and this and that and that. My question is, why must Lyle Foster go and play overseas when we have a South African national football team? Why must Benny McCarthy go and circle overseas? Well, not circle, he's doing well overseas, but why must he go and be represented somewhere else for him to get that kind of income, for him to have that kind of representation? Why must people like what's the guy that won the gold medal at the Olympics?
Wade van Niekerk.
Wade van Niekerk. When us as colored people, we do well, then we're good enough to be counted as South Africans, and we even being told now our black people are doing well in this. But now when it comes to things like this, now there's a clear line between what's colored and black. It's like, but now guys, you are inconsistent and your argument is incoherent. It doesn't make sense. If you're going to say that when we represent ourselves well, like the Benny McCarthy's, like the Wade van Niekerks, like the Lyle Fosters, that go out there and represent South Africa well, then let's be consistent throughout then. Because there's a lot of Wade van Niekerks walking around in Elders and walking around in Rivoli and wherever. There's a lot of Lyle Fosters walking around in Reiga Park and Coronationville. But let's be consistent throughout. Why must we fight? And we've interviewed their parents before, and we've interviewed parents and even people who struggled. They must now first go overseas to be recognized, but in your own country you're not recognized. It doesn't make sense, and it's not fair. It's really not fair.
But you see, this is the issue. This is what it's going to lead to. I mean, we already see a huge brain drain of our best professionals that is leaving the country because they say, look, what do you expect? There's no opportunity here for us. It's
There's
like
nowhere to go.
you're going to get your degree, you're going to get your honors, your masters, even some their PhD, they're going to get their doctorate. But what good is that? What good is it when I have all these qualifications, but now that there's these target systems? And this is what the one guy says, his name is Johnny Goldberg, and he's an attorney, but he says that what's really going to set this apart from the previous the predecessor of this new amendment, right, is how it's going to be implemented in practice. Because now you're going to see, because they call it numerical targets and not quotas. But now we're going to see, is it going to be a quota system? Because you say, according to the bill, according to the act, it's suitably qualified candidates. Now, what is suitably qualified candidates? Is suitably qualified based on race, based on gender, based on disability? Is that suitably qualified? Because then what about the actual scientific and academic qualifications that is necessary for
to do the job? I mean, I was reading the article of how the government has yet again failed to secure jobs for the new graduating doctors. So you will be qualified
Is this medical doctors?
A qualified medical doctor
Yeah.
with
At
no
Checkers.
job at Checkers. Literally, that's what's going to happen now. And a couple of years, I don't know if it's the same thing, but it happened in Namibia for a while also. But I know that South African nurses was at the peak of this, where they left for the UK
Yeah.
because
The UK has a shortage.
the UK has a shortage, but they have much better living conditions, much better working conditions. But they are highly qualified here, but there's nothing for them here. So we produce a high caliber, but there's nothing that can sustain.
And this is even this is even among black academic elite.
Yeah.
This is even among black. It's like it's not just a matter of colored, Indian, and white that's leaving. This is
Everyone
across
is
the
leaving.
board.
Yeah.
Every race that you can think of. They're like, no, why is this country's crashing and burning, my bro? I'm out.
And I mean, Xavier just mentioned it. I mean, about the soccer players. All the soccer players, especially colored soccer players, must go play elsewhere in different countries to be recognized. But they can't be recognized here. But whatever system is in place here is in shambles.
Yeah.
It is in shambles. Like, it doesn't matter what is touched. It's in shambles. I mean, something that was a working institution maybe 5 to 10 years ago, it's non-existent. Or you just go find the skeleton of the building there with 3 employees there and the other one telling you, "Here's my lunch, come back later," sitting behind the counter. You know, this is what we're dealing with in all the institutions here.
Yep.
And that is
So-
But
that
then,
equates to poor leadership.
the honest truth is this act has been in play for long already.
Yeah.
Well,
It's nothing new
since
to...
since apartheid, it's been in place.
Yeah, but I mean, in the black man's hand,
Yeah.
it's been
Okay.
in play. Because how many of our colored people is at home because first preference, we're not seen as black, so a black man needs to take that job anyway.
Yeah.
So
If he's qualified or not.
If he's qualified or not, he takes it anyway. So it's nothing new. Yes, it's now in paper now, but it's being practiced
It's
throughout.
been on paper since 1998, but now there's amendments made to it,
Which is more detrimental.
Exactly.
I understand
Further
that.
entrenches
I
the
understand
just
that.
divide.
But
I think what you're trying to say is that even though it has been in place, they've been doing
they've been doing
whatever.
it to us for
Yeah.
Yeah.
the longest
This is
time.
saying that's
If
been
you go
going
into
on
a
anyway.
workplace, it's the same thing.
nothing
Now
new.
you're saying it's 1%
detrimental.
colored people, 1% Indian, but it's been like that.
In some sectors, it's 0.1%. So here's an example that somebody made, right? And there's a few people making this example. So say, for instance, there's 999 employers, right? Employees in a company. If one person out of the 999 is an Indian,
Ticket box.
no, that person must go. Because,
Oh,
because it's above 0.1%.
I see now. So you must get the midget
so
Indian.
so it's so
I mean, we joke about these things, but
so
it's
essentially what you're saying, colored and Indian has been their
They've been-
position is nullified. They can't get it.
Yeah.
They don't exist in it, which is why I'm saying we don't exist as coloreds and Indians. We don't exist in cloud. When do we get to that
It's
point?
like Xavier said, we exist when we do well in certain areas that represent South Africa.
But,
Then we exist.
But to who's a core? That's to that person's struggles. They've left the country to go train with somebody else.
I mean,
there.
I'm not too sure if Wade van der Kerk is back, but I know that he left in 2021 to the US.
Was it the US?
Yeah.
Because that's when there was a time he was staying in the Netherlands.
Moved to the US. I mean, we look at most of, even in our rugby team,
Yeah.
most of the guys are like, deuces, I'm out.
And the rugby team is, I'd say, I think besides the cricket team, but I don't know much about cricket.
Cricket is terrible.
Debatable.
You see, I don't know anything about cricket. But with
Because
our
of
rugby
quota.
but the rugby
But
team
quotas
is
are messing everything up, bruh.
Is-
Because there was nothing wrong. Our rugby team was working, bruh. We were best in the world. Even the cricket.
Bro, have you seen the Sevens team? The Springbok
rugby
Sevens. The
yeah.
the Sevens. Yarr, they are warm, my bro. They are warm. And I'm not trying to throw race into this,
And
but
it's don't
majority
colour
of those guys are
There's a lot of
colored.
But
'Cause
even
they're fast.
even if you
Majority of those
you
guys
must
are
have
colored.
if you
Noord
have a
Kaap
colored-
and wat's 'n
bruh, if
plekke.
You must have a colored soccer team now, and just
Bro.
and play against Bafana. They'll probably beat Bafana.
And the thing is, it's not this is not even, it's, and even besides race, right? even black qualified people are not being considered for these jobs. Even black qualified people. And
not con-
it's,
yeah.
So now
don't
where's
even
the problem
don't even
actually?
mention
Because
it's
the
supposed
Coloureds
to
and the
be that
Indians
thing.
because it's about connection.
Yeah, it's who you know.
It's about
Corruption.
connection.
It's not what you know,
so
it's who
it's
you
not
know.
about suitably qualified candidates.
Well, it is suitable if I think it's suitable and I'm the one who's the connection and I put you there.
So
then
let's
it is suitable.
so let's go into
mean-
what DA leader John Steenhuisen said, and I want to get your guys'
That's
opinion
very long, eh?
on
I
this.
read maybe
You-
3 days.
So there was an article posted on the 15th of May, which was Monday, on News 24, and it's also in the description, so you guys can go have a look at it. And it's the headline is absurd and perverse. DA on draft, EE targets, right? And these are just basically the highlights of the article. The DA is outraged by the draft targets in terms of the Employment Equity Amendment Act, which has been published for public comment. And then DA leader John Steenhuisen says it's a new low for the ANC government and the targets appear to target coloured and Indian employees. The DA will challenge the act in the Constitutional Court. So I'm just going to read a bit of it because, like Jesse said, it's very, very long. Absurd and perverse are the words DA leader John Steenhuisen used to describe the draft Employment Equity Amendment Act regulations published for comment on Friday as the DA prepares to challenge the act in the Constitutional Court. Steenhuisen is in particular outraged by the effect the proposed racial quotas in air quotes, would have on coloured and Indian South Africans. Last month, President Cyril Ramaphosa signed the Employment Equity Amendment Bill of 2020 into law. The Act empowers the Department of Labour to set new transformation targets for industries, including regional ones, while also sparing many smaller businesses from the need to report annually, like we already established. In terms of the Act, the Department of Labour must prescribe sectoral employment demographic targets in each province for companies with more than 50 employees. And appalled Steenhuisen said the draft targets signal a new low for the ANC government, constituting a naked attempt to expand state control over the economy, deepen social divisions, and ban certain communities from employment in particular sectors and parts of the country. He goes on to say that the quotas seem especially targeted at the groups defined by the regulations as coloured males, coloured females, Indian males, and Indian females. People from these communities suffered discrimination under the previous regime, and now they are being re-victimized by a democratic government. That has learned all the wrong lessons from the past, Steenhuisen said in a statement. In sectors like, these are the sectors that he mentioned, agriculture, forestry and fisheries, mining and quarrying, manufacturing, finance, arts and science, the target set for coloured employees in provinces like Limpopo, Mpumalanga and the Northwest, listen to it, is 0.0%, effectively banning these groups from employment. He added that in Gauteng, employment by people classified by the state as coloured is sometimes limited to below 1%. And in case of employees classified by the state as Indian, the targets are often as low as 0.1% across economic sectors. Consider the absurdity. A company with 50 employees that has even a single Indian person on the payroll will be in breach of the 0.1% limit. As one out of 50 is equal to 2%. So it's way over the target, right, of the company's total employees. Conversely, if that company fires its single Indian employee on basis of race, it will also be in breach because it will then have 0% Indian employees.
Is laughable, ne?
The social perversion created by these targets constitutes a clear and urgent threat to the social fabric of South Africa. The implication is that companies operating in certain parts of the country are banned from employing even a single coloured or Indian person in a particular position. If companies defy these regulations, they will severely be punished by being disqualified from government contracts or doing business with the state.
So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But I'm asking, so if I'm a coloured person in these areas and I start my business and I grow my business to 100 people or 50 people, that essentially means I must give my business away because me as the owner and employee of this place can't be there. But it's my company.
So these
Essentially.
are obviously the intricacies that we don't know yet. I can't say that yes, this is going to be the case because I don't think that anybody will be required. Or I actually can't say that because anything is possible in this country at this rate. Because I was going to say that I don't think it's possible for them to take your business away from you. Hello, they want to do expropriation without compensation, so it's very possible. So at this point in time, I really don't know.
Because that's essentially what you're saying to me. You're saying to me that I can have a company, but keep it at 49 people and then just keep it as small as that. And klar.
So listen here, further to that, it says that in the Northern Cape, for example, employment of black females, so this is not even beneficial, and this is the last time, remember when we were talking about triple BEE, and I was like, triple BEE doesn't even benefit black Africans or African blacks or however they choose to classify it. It even doesn't really benefit that population or demographic in full. Because it says that in the Northern Cape, for example, employment of black females at private firms is limited to below 15.8%. So consequently, a company in Kimberley that happens to employ more skilled black women than the quota allows will also be punished and excluded from government contracts. Now we are going and we are talking about qualifications. So if there's too many qualified black women, that's too much. Come, out. It's like...
What do you want from me?
But I don't think this thing's gonna work, eh? As much as they try and push it and as much as they try and make it about race and all of it, I'm not sure it's gonna work at all.
I do think that we've come to the conclusion that nothing works at all in this country.
Nah, for real.
Now, I'm also critical of the fact that it's DA leader John Steenhuisen that is now all of a sudden making... and I mean, I'm like, again, they will say, you doomed if you do, you doomed if you don't. But I'm saying that knowing the business of politicking, right? I'm just like... My antennas are raised and I'm like, why is John Steenhuisen making this? And I mean, look, somebody has to make a noise about it. So then there's that as well. So I'm really caught between a rock and a hard place because I'm like, oh, you are losing the colored vote, DA. So now you must, colored and Indian vote. So now you must now punt this in our faces because again, John Steenhuisen, the DA is coming to the rescue of the colored people.
But you know what's going to end up happening, especially with ANC? It's going to become a situation where it's a matter of you have to implement these rules. And if you don't implement these rules, we're going to have to say, we're going to come to your company, and if you're breaking any of these rules, there's going to be a fine. And if there's not a fine, what's going to happen is you're going to have to grease our palms. So it's just another way
corruption
of coming to the company, coming
for
to
the
count
comrades
the
to
people.
eat.
Yeah, look here, you have 2 colors here. You're not allowed to have those 2 colors. What are we going to do?
Let's
Ish,
pay.
my friend, what are we going to do?
No, really, eh?
How are we going to
So
do
my
this
question
now?
is this.
That's what it's going to boil down to.
My question is this. What does this what makes this different from the mafia? From the Italian
Nothing,
mafia?
it is the mafia.
This is
need,
the mafia.
I need to because
It's the
ANC
difference.
is
The
the mafia.
difference is that it's Italian and African. There's the difference.
okay, because we're just shaking down everyone now. Because that's what's happening now. Hardworking South Africans
It is a shakedown.
who must pay taxes, who must grease your palms in any case, must now grease your palms how many times?
We are just greasers out here. We are just greasing. Eh? That's what we are doing.
Nah,
We
this
are
is definitely
doing
just a
best.
shakedown. This is just another way of shaking us down. We're going to come and count. And if it
So
doesn't
what
add
was
up,
interesting is
must pay us.
yesterday on Dr. Carl's show, Dr. Mpo Palazzi from the DA was actually his guest, and he was joined by Tessa Dooms, who was his co-host, political analyst, and they were talking about coalitions. Is it the future or is it failing? And I know that coalitions might not seem like it has anything to do with this specific topic, but remember, national elections is next year, 2024. It might even be sooner if we continue on this trajectory where there's just complete tension. It might be sooner. So I am appealing to everybody who is watching and your family and your neighbor, even your cat and your dog, if they are registered, to vote, because anything is possible. I mean, if we've got undocumented foreigners that are voting, why not our cats and our dogs, right?
We will
So
have
this
dead
is the thing
people.
that I'm saying. If we've got a situation like this where elections are coming up, people, you can't say that I'm scared to place my vote because, like people are saying, why do we always vote for the ANC? Why do we always vote them back in power? Because there is this mentality, that chief mentality that you were talking about. Yeah, but they are the chiefs, they are untouchable. But also, if we vote, what other party are we going to vote? We can't vote DA, that's a white party. We can't vote PA, that's a colored party. We can't vote. So now we've already established racial divisions within politics, which is it's a natural thing. But now people are basing their votes off of race, right? And not off of policy. Like Tessa was saying yesterday, if you think about, and Dr. Mpopalati was also saying that when we get into debates with political elites, right? They never discuss politics. They always saying, yeah, you corrupt. Yeah, you busy with fraud. Yeah, you don't have qualifications. That is what the debates go around. Even this current local coalitions that we have. What is being done? Our cities are in shambles. We've had 5 mayors in the last 18 months in the city of Johannesburg. 5. I mean, honestly. Now what? You go out mid-month, another one comes in, you both get full salaries. With whose money? And then look at the state of our country. Look at the state of our city. What the heck is actually going on? And she mentioned that come 2024, she says without a shadow of a doubt, this was her words, go and watch that show. She said that there is definitely going to be a coalition at national level. So she says that it seems that there's talks going on that there's an ANC EFF coalition that's going to take place. My people, let it be clear. Look at the top structures and look at the demographic of ANC and EFF and look at what they stand for. Look at the language that they use. EFF is very military in nature. They speak the way they want. They don't really care about offending anybody. That's how it is. And so, if there must be a collision between ANC and EFF, I can tell you now, as a matter of fact, I am not secure in my future in this country. I am not secure. So, if you're saying that, no, I don't want to vote because we're doomed if we do, we're doomed if we don't. Kanti, you are doomed if you don't.
A matter of fact, if you don't vote, you have voted. If ANC remains in power or EFF and ANC is in power and you did not go to vote, you said you put them in power. You put them there because you didn't.
I know it's difficult. I know, even me, like I am a religious voter. Since the time of eligibility, I've been voting. At this point in time, I don't know who to vote for. I'm honest, I don't know. I was always sure about this one party. But there's certain things in policy and in implementation and execution that I'm just not, I'm sure anymore. But anyway, guys, we've come to the end of the show. Let us end it on this note. Chezo, any closing remarks?
No, we can start by angst. So,
I did say my closing remarks. If you don't vote, you've essentially put that people in power. So, yeah, guys, this is the life we're living in. So, yeah, that's it from me.
Zykes.
Zykes.
Closing remarks.
Sorry, I took off the earphones. Closing remarks from me. Guys, go vote. Don't have this attitude of, if I don't vote and da-da-da. Vote so that we can at least have some sort of challenge. So it's not like it's going unopposed. So if there's a pull to either side, and I said this in that other conversation also, I don't know who was on the panel, but that show from last week, we also had the Ravonia cycle guy on the panel and all that. And I said, but it's even getting to the place now, even if you do vote, you're not even sure if there's corruption there also, if they saying mismanaging the ballots, if they putting dead people there and cats and whatever else in there also, it's like, you're not even sure if it's legitimate either. But at least the best thing we can do at this point, the only thing we can do at this point is actually to vote someone else also in so that they have a little bit more of a pool. We know ANC is probably going to get majority still. But at least if there's another
current polls show that it's below 30%.
Sorry, I don't have it.
ANC.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's shocking.
What did you say?
I said that current polls are actually showing that it's below 30% for the ANC currently.
Okay, so ANC, hopefully they can.
Because I was saying that, like Dr. Mpopalate said, that there is a possibility that there's an EFF and ANC coalition in 2024, which is not good for us.
Yeah, that's probably gonna end up happening.
That's why I said you need to go and vote.
Because ANC and EFF is just the same. They just they say one thing in front of us in public, and then afterwards they go and make different deals. So I don't know.
The business of politicking. Chase?
Yeah, no, in closing, thank you everyone for tuning in. Yeah, no, it was a bit of a everyone here in studio today.
I'm even getting hot now.
Yeah.
And I didn't put the aircon on.
It's difficult. But yeah, like Lee said, do the most, go out there, vote, make the vote count. We see throughout the votings all the time, ANC's numbers is getting
Lower.
lower and lower and lower. So I feel like we will get to a point where we do see the ANC. I don't know how soon it's gonna be,
Yeah.
but we're getting to a point where people is fall. Yes, hallelujah, in the spirit. I don't know if you can be in the spirit with that, but anyway.
I had another term for that. It's G4.
G4.
Okay, yeah, people is G4 for what's going on in this country, and I think it's time that we put that G4ness onto paper.
Yes.
And make it
Exercise your
Exercise your
G4ness.
G4ness. So yeah.
Yeah. And if your G is full, you need to go and let go. You must let it all go. So just like let it all go on
Thank you,
this
Leandra.
government.
Well, thank you.
But yes, thank you so much for tuning in. I just want to read some of the comments here. We've got Lodelie saying, morning famo. Juan Ward saying, good morning. Lodicine says, we have basically been, like Jesse was saying, living this act for years. They're just making it official on paper. But like I said to you, it was official on paper since 1998. In fact, since 1994 or during the Codisa and all those things. But I don't want to get into that. Our time is up. And then we've got Lodelie saying, no one's future is secure at all here with the way things are being done in this country. 100%. Thank you so much for those tuning in. Thank you so much for those who hit the like button already. If you haven't done so already, please do it now. Like the thing, dog. Yeah. And then we'll see you next week, guys. Until next time, keep safe. Please keep warm. This flu is it's dangerous.
It's
please,
fluing.
it's fluing is doing the thing. So please be safe. Please keep warm. And love you guys. Praying for South Africa. Please continue to pray for South Africa. Continue to pray. Yara, help ons asseblief. In all honesty. Thank you so much. Until next time. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Woohoo!